Here we are, classic 80s song called The Final Countdown, and we are on the final countdown to the end of World War One. Today, we will be talking about 1918, the last year, and the German spring offensives. Here we go. Let's pause for a second and jam. By the way, I'm headbanging right now, class. All right, let's get to our notes. So, here we are right here, the 1918 spring offensives, and I've been mentioning Ludendorff a lot. It's actually interesting. This is one of the wars where actually leaders lose sons. Ludendorff actually lost two sons in World War One. TR, Teddy Roosevelt, will lose a son. We're going to have Foch, who we'll talk about in a second, lost a son. The Prime Minister, at the beginning of the war, Asquith, lost a son. So leaders are losing sons. It's one of the last wars where we, of course, are going to see this. So we're here in 1918. Italians are out of it. Romanians are out of it. Serbians are out of it. Russia's out of it. Think about that for a second. And there's a specter. There's a specter of Bolshevism that is spreading in Germany, especially in the Eastern troops, but also they feel like at home, where the situation on the home front in Germany is so bad. You have strikes in the munitions plants going on, where people are just have had enough of this starvation and these conditions. I mean, they're giving their sons to this war effort, and there is literally no end in sight. And this is where you get the whole. This is where Hitler gets the whole. We were stabbed in the back of these November criminals, and we'll get to that later on. But kind of this is where it's coming from. And then you on the other side, you have the home front dissolving in Germany, and then there's 10,000 Americans arriving each day. Germany doesn't have those replacements. And their best friend is Austria. That's not a good friend. It's kind of like having Gabe as your friend. Just kidding, Gabe. I love you. Alrighty. So, with this being said, knowing this, I think it's a smart play by Ludendorff. Though ultimately it fails, Ludendorff says we got to do it now if we're going to win this. So he puts together 5-punch combination spring offensive that we're going to look at. And so it really begins with Operation Michael on March the 21st, patron saint of Germany. It was really kind of aimed at the British, and what he does is he gets together the best German troops throughout the military, puts them in for that one big right punch. I mean, this is going to be strong. The best German troops. The problem is what if this fails? If this fails, you've just used up the best troops in your army. Well, anyway, he's going to give it a try. So, with 10,000 artillery pieces, firing 1.1 million shells in 4 hours, not these 8 days so you know where it's coming, which was stupid. They do it in one short 4 hour span, and it keeps people off their toes. And they also use a lot of poison gas because you don't want to destroy. Their idea is to neutralize. And we can see right here. Whoops, let me bring this up. Operation Michael. Sorry, guys. Operation Michael, right here. I don't know why they're doing this signature thing. Okay, here we go. I needed a highlighter. Fill it up. Here we go. And it's basically look along this front right here. And right there, highlighter's not working. Not sure why. But anywho. But they push a massive, almost 50-mile gap in between the British and the French. This is huge. But it's taken time. The British are not folding. The British are asking for troops. And Foch, who is the commander, says, nope, I can't give any. So finally we have an overall commander. But they're successful. The problem is you're using the best of your troops. And they're moving through here. It's going really well. As you see, the British, of course, 21,000 surrendered on the first day, 78,000 casualties on that first day. Huge success. But remember, Waterloo was 60,000 casualties, but that was only one day. This is just the first day of many. And Germans advanced up to 10 miles in some places, so they're out of this whole trench warfare. This is open prairie land and things like that, in areas unscathed by war. So the Germans take Amiens, and they just run out of juice, supplies. In some cases, some of the German troops are just dying of exhaustion, falling along the side of the road. They hadn't eaten in 5 days, haven't slept in 5 days. Imagine that. And they're the best of the German troops. And it fails. And he's going to have to call it off. One of the big things is finally they have an overall commander. It takes them to the end of the war to do this. You had the British doing their thing, the French doing their thing, Americans doing their own thing. Now it's Foch leads it all, and he does a no retreat order, and that's Foch right there, very famous. Another interesting thing is, of course, this Paris gun. On March 23rd in Paris, you start hearing these explosions. This Paris gun, look at this picture. This thing could send a shell 81 miles. The barrel was 100 feet long. It had a crane to hold up the barrel to keep it from drooping from its weight. It was the first thing humans ever, the shell was the first thing humans ever launched into the stratosphere. The gunners had to account for the rotation of the Earth into their calculations. This thing is just amazing. And then boom, but it's highly inaccurate. All right, you're trying to hit Paris. So think about that. One shell hit a church that killed 90 people. There was a total of 800 casualties and 300 deaths. The goal is to shock the Allies into a pro-German peace. With this one gun, it's not going to work. On April the 5th, Ludendorff calls off Operation Michael. He's inflicted 77,000 casualties on the French and 200,000 on the British, but it comes at a cost of 250,000 of the best German troops. 10 days later, he turns around and marches Operation Georgette. All right? Georgette, you can see the casualties from Michael right up here. Georgette aims at the Channel ports, and it stalls with another 100,000 casualties for the British and Germans. That we can see up here is where punch number 2 of 5 comes, and it's stopped. Boom, 100,000 casualties on each side on that one. And then, of course, he is going to rest about 1 month, and he's basically pulling together troops for Operation Blücher. And so he's taken in just pulling troops out of hospitals, really. Oh, your left arm works, but your right doesn't? Hey, you can still pull the trigger. And it's actually pretty successful, this third punch. Let's look at the map really quick. Right here, we can really see it, these vertical lines right here, really getting close to Paris. People in Paris are thinking about moving the headquarters, moving the government, getting the heck out of town. We see in several examples where the Germans are encountering the Americans, and they're just blown away with how fresh and healthy we look, how bright and new our equipment is. Of course, we just got there. You have the famous Battle of Belleau Wood, where the Marines become very famous, and they fight so well that the Germans call them Teufelsjuden, which Wyatt knows what that means, of course, devil dogs. They were given that nickname by the Germans that you might even see still on recruiting posters to this day. But that, again, of course, stalls out, right? And remember, the U.S. troops are arriving at a rate of 10,000 a day, and this quote right here is from Napoleon. Quantity has a quality all of its own. So that stalls out. And then you have Operation Ginsenai, I don't know how to say that, on June the 4th. The aim is to extend the northern part of the salient, and I'll show you that right here. And it's not very successful. They want to move this. This is all the land they get right there from that. That's punch number 4. And then the final punch, of course, we'll get to it, is right down there, trying to extend the games from the Blucher offensive right here. They're trying to extend it here and here. And that's basically what punch 4 and punches 5 are right there, is to extend their gains. And it fails. The Allies, with the help of the Americans, stop it, right? The Spanish flu is beginning to hit. I mean, in this last, the 5th punch that we see right here, the Germans are so hungry, when they encounter wheat fields, they stop and chop it down and begin to create food from it. But the Allies stop it by using very World War II type tactics, like tanks and infantry with planes doing strafing attacks, and it's working. And here, look at this last line, and this is important. The German army is not defeated, but it can no longer win. And so I like this picture right here. As you can see, these are the masses of German soldiers surrendered that we see right here. As you see, on August the 8th, the Allies do a counterattack. And thus begins what we call the 100 days to the end of the war. The 100 days till the end of the war began on August the 8th. And Ludendorff calls it the Black Day because just whole armies of the German army are surrendering, whole divisions, I should mean. And so this is basically the 100 days. The British attack with 500 plus tanks. U.S. is attacking in the Ardennes forest, but it's still bloody, all right? Look at this. The British suffer almost 500,000 casualties. Same with the French, this last 100 days. All right? Whole hundreds of thousands of Germans are really surrendering. On September 29th, Ludendorff suffers a nervous breakdown, and he is done. He's replaced. The Germans are working behind the scenes for a deal. They love Wilson's 14 points because it is nice on the Germans. And countries begin to drop out. In early September, Bulgaria drops out. October the 30th, the Ottomans say, we're kaput. November the 3rd, the Austrians drop out. I'm surprised it took them so long. And then an interesting thing, the German naval commander wants to do a death ride, and his sailors mutiny. And they mutiny the Kiel Naval Yard and say, we're not going to do that. Ludendorff flees the country to the Netherlands. The Kaiser abdicates and heads to the Netherlands. And the Germans are ready to make terms, of course. And what we see right here is a famous picture. You see the railway car of Compiègne right there. They meet and decide on Armistice Day, and Armistice is a pause in the fighting. They say it's going to be at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, 1918. And they agree to this on this railway car. So let me bring up my map, my next map, really quick. Move that over and rotate clockwise. Okay. And we can see this 100 days push right here. They start all along here, and this is where it ends right there along that line. It didn't highlight. Very fresh. Let me try to highlight this again. Oh, it doesn't highlight. All right, all along that line right there. Notice the Germans were not pushed into Germany. They were still on French and Belgian soil. Here is Compiègne right here, where they met the railway car for the armistice. This down here is primarily where the Americans fought, near Verdun. And of course, here is the Ardennes Forest, where many of these soldiers' sons will fight in World War II against the Germans. Kind of an irony there. But remember, the Germans are here, still on French soil, still on Belgian soil, and up in the north, in a hospital, suffering from a wound, is Adolf Hitler. And he is furious about this. He is disgusted with these November criminals, those who made the deal with the Allies. And he says in Mein Kampf, his book he'll write in the early 20s, and so it had all been in vain, the hunger, the sacrifices, and in vain the death of 2 million who had faith in the fatherland. Think of reading this as a German veteran in World War One who had lost a limb. Many Germans felt the same as Hitler's bitterness to the war's end, and that's why some of them, many of them, will flock to his side and the Nazi movement because they felt betrayed about what happened in November of 1918. But Hitler's an idiot. He's an idiot. There's no way the Germans were going to win. With the Americans arriving, I think Ludendorff was a smart military guy. This is their only chance, and their only chance failed. And that, my friends, is basically World War One. Hopefully you liked it. I got into a lot of the military details. Hopefully it wasn't too much, but I love this stuff. I wish I could have done it in person for y'all. There are several questions you need to answer with this. This will take us to spring break, and when you come back, we'll do a Treaty of Versailles project for a couple days. And that's that. Thanks, guys, and answer the questions.